All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into how to totally crush a motor vehicle engine assembler interview.
Sounds good.
We've got a career guide, an interview guide, and some really cool info on this platform called RoleCatcher, and it's AI.
Oh,
We're
wow.
going to hit those tough interview questions hard, give you some insider career tips, and show you how to use AI to make your answers really stand out.
Yeah.
So by the end of this, you'll be ready to just blow those interviewers away.
Awesome. I'm ready.
Okay, so what's really cool about this job, it's so much more than just putting parts together, right?
You're right. You are the one who brings that engine to life, like the heart of the vehicle.
Okay, I love that way of putting it.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into some of those interview questions that might come up. I know you've got some awesome strategies to help our listener really nail these.
I do.
So first off, a classic one.
Yeah.
What experience do you have in assembling motor vehicle engines? Now, our listener may not have direct experience, and that's totally fine.
Of course.
What's the best way to handle that?
You're absolutely right. A lot of people coming into this role might not have that direct experience with engines. The key here is to focus on transferable skills.
Okay.
So think about those times that you've worked with your hands, paid really close attention to detail, followed some complex instructions, or, just been a problem solver in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are skills that any good assembler needs.
Okay, so can you give us like a few specific examples of how someone could really showcase those skills?
Absolutely. So let's say you've built furniture from IKEA instructions.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
Right.
Yeah.
That right there shows spatial reasoning and the ability to follow a guide super closely.
Right.
Both of those are huge in engine assembly.
Yeah, for sure.
Or maybe you're into like electronics repair.
Yep.
That shows you understand how complex systems work.
Yeah.
Even something like really carefully restoring a vintage bicycle can highlight those skills.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Yep.
Okay, so it's all about making those connections between your experiences and what they're looking for in engine assembly.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about this question? What is your understanding of the role of a motor vehicle engine assembler?
Ooh, good one.
I feel like there's more to it than just like listing tasks, right?
For sure.
Oh.
You want to show them that you get the bigger picture.
Okay.
Don't just say, I put engines together. Talk about the precision that's needed, the importance of quality control, and how what you do actually impacts the vehicle's performance and safety.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the career guide really stresses how important safety is in this job.
Oh, huge, yeah.
So how would you suggest our listener answer the question? How do you ensure you follow all safety procedures when assembling engines?
This is where you really get to show how committed you are to keeping a safe work environment.
Okay.
Talk about specific safety procedures that you're familiar with, like lockout, tagout procedures for machinery, or how to handle hazardous materials correctly, or even just wearing the right PPE. You can even talk about safety training you've had, even if it wasn't directly related to engine assembly.
Okay, so be specific.
Right.
And really emphasize that safety is like your top priority.
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. The interviewer might ask, can you give an example of a challenging engine assembly project you worked on and how you overcame any obstacles? What if our listener hasn't actually worked on a real engine before?
That's a good point. Happens a lot.
Yeah.
Well, this is where you have to get creative with those transferable skills again.
Okay.
Think of any project where you hit a roadblock. Maybe you had to troubleshoot something or think outside the box to find a solution. It could be anything from fixing a broken appliance to figuring out a computer program.
Okay.
The main thing is to highlight how you solve problems and how you don't give up.
So it's not really about the engine itself. It's more about showing that you can handle pressure.
Yes.
And find solutions.
Exactly.
Speaking of pressure, the guide mentions that engine assemblers often work under tight deadlines. So how should our listener answer this?
Yeah.
How do you manage your time and prioritize your tasks when assembling engines?
With this question, it's all about showing off those organizational skills and your ability to work efficiently.
Okay.
You could talk about using to-do lists or prioritizing based on what's most urgent, maybe breaking down big projects into smaller steps.
Okay.
Or even time management techniques like the Pomodoro technique.
Oh, I love that one.
It's a good one, right? The interviewer wants to see that you can stay on track and hit those production targets.
Okay, so show them you're organized and efficient.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Now let's talk about troubleshooting. Super important for any assembler.
Oh, huge.
So how would you recommend our listener tackle the question? How do you troubleshoot engine assembly issues?
Here's where you really want to show off your analytical skills and your problem-solving process.
Okay.
Don't just say, I tried to figure it out.
Right.
Lay out a step-by-step approach.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you'd start by visually inspecting the engine, then check the assembly manual, or use some diagnostic tools.
Yeah. You could also mention any experience with troubleshooting software, even if it's not specifically for engines.
So it's about showing that you have a process. Okay, you mentioned diagnostic tools. Can you give us an example of what those might be when it comes to engine assembly?
Sure. There are tools like OBD scanners, which read codes from the engine's computer, multimeters to test the electrical circuits.
Okay.
Even something as simple as a torque wrench to make sure those bolts are tightened just right can be a diagnostic tool.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's about showing that, the tools of the trade
Right.
and how to use them effectively.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to another big part of the job quality control. How should our listener handle the question? How do you ensure that you are producing high-quality engine assemblies?
This is your chance to really shine and show how detail-oriented you are and that you care about doing excellent work.
Okay.
Talk about your process for double-checking everything, using measuring tools for accuracy.
And sticking to those quality control protocols.
Okay.
You can also mention any experience with continuous improvement processes to show that you're always looking to improve your work.
So it's not just about doing the job, it's about going above and beyond to guarantee quality.
That's it.
And finally, let's tackle a question that could be a little intimidating for someone new to the field.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that you are complying with all regulatory requirements in engine assembly?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It is, yeah.
Here's where you show that you know your stuff when it comes to industry standards and regulations.
Okay.
Do some research on things like emissions standards and safety protocols and mention those specifically.
Okay.
You can talk about how you stay updated on those regulations and make sure your work always meets those standards.
So do your homework.
Yes.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground on those interview questions. But before we move on, I want to touch on something that can give our listener a real advantage. RoleCatcher's AI platform.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard it can be a game changer for prepping for interviews.
Oh, absolutely it can. One of the best things about RoleCatcher is that it gives you personalized feedback on how you answer those interview questions.
Oh, wow.
You can practice your responses, see how you come across, and get really specific suggestions on how to improve, all tailored to that exact job you're going for.
So it's like having a virtual interview coach right there, analyzing every word and gesture.
Exactly. The AI can pick up on things like your tone of voice, how fast you're talking, even your keywords,
Okay.
to help you polish your delivery and make a killer impression.
That's pretty amazing. So let's dive a little deeper into those career insights from the guide. I think this is where things are going to get really interesting.
Let's do it. All right, so we just went through some common interview questions for motor vehicle engine assemblers.
Right.
Now let's explore the career path itself.
Okay, cool. So the career guide we have really maps out this clear path,
It does.
starting with entry level and then working your way up to senior assembler. I thought it was super interesting how the responsibilities and expertise needed kind of evolve at each stage.
Yeah, definitely. So at that entry level, you're really focused on mastering the basics,
Okay.
learning that assembly process, understanding all those engine components, and developing those really important hands-on skills.
So building that strong foundation.
Exactly.
What comes after that?
So as you get more experience and move into that junior assembler role, you'll start taking on more responsibility.
Okay.
You might start working on more complex types of engines,
Okay.
troubleshooting those smaller issues, and even get to train some of the newer assemblers.
So it's like leveling up in a video game.
I like that analogy.
You're gaining new skills and tackling harder challenges.
Exactly.
Cool. So what about when you become an experienced assembler?
So as you transition into that experienced assembler role, they're going to expect you to work more on your own, manage your own workflow, and you might even lead some smaller teams on certain projects.
So leadership skills start to become more important at that level.
Definitely. And then finally, when you reach that top tier, that senior assembler,
Okay.
that's where you become the go-to expert.
I see.
You're not just assembling engines anymore. You're mentoring other assemblers, ensuring quality control, and maybe even helping to improve processes or working with engineers on brand new designs.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So the guide also mentions the possibility of specializing in certain types of engines.
Right.
Like diesel, gas, or even electric.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. As the automotive industry changes, the role of the engine assembler also has to change.
Makes sense.
We're seeing a growing need for people who specialize in electric vehicle assembly.
Oh, really?
Especially because more and more car companies are focusing on these sustainable technologies.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really cool trend. The guide actually mentions that the electric vehicle market is predicted to grow by over 20% every year for the next few years.
It's huge.
That's a lot.
It is, and that means there's going to be a huge need for assemblers who really understand how electric motors and all their systems work.
Okay, so if someone's interested in this field, they should definitely keep up with all those new technologies.
100%. And speaking of keeping up with things,
Yeah?
RoleCatcher's AI platform
Right.
can really help you stay ahead of the game.
I see.
It can help you figure out what skills are in demand
Okay.
and then adjust your resume and how you answer interview questions to really highlight your strengths in those areas.
So it's like having a personal career advisor.
Exactly. Guiding you every step of the way.
That's awesome.
Good.
You mentioned tailoring resumes earlier.
Yes.
Can you explain how RoleCatcher's AI helps with that?
Of course. So let's say you're applying for a job that specifically wants experience with electric vehicle assembly.
Okay.
RoleCatcher's AI can look at your resume, find those keywords and phrases,
Okay.
and even suggest how to reword things to emphasize those specific skills.
So it's not just about listing your skills, it's about presenting them in a way that's relevant to that particular job.
That's it. You've got to speak their language.
Okay, cool. So you said earlier that RoleCatcher can give feedback on interview answers.
I did.
How does that actually work?
You can record yourself answering some practice interview questions,
Oh, wow.
and then RoleCatcher's AI will actually analyze how you're speaking,
Oh, wow.
your tone of voice,
Oh.
even your body language.
Huh.
And then it gives you personalized feedback and suggestions on how to improve.
It's like having a virtual mock interview with a coach.
Exactly.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
It sounds like RoleCatcher takes all the guesswork out of interview prep.
It really does. It gives you this level of personalized guidance and support that you just can't get with traditional methods.
So we've talked about career paths, emerging trends, and how RoleCatcher can help you with interviews.
Right.
But what about what it's actually like to do the job every day?
Yes.
What's it really like to be a motor vehicle engine assembler?
That's a great question. Let's try to put ourselves in their shoes for a minute and imagine what a typical day might look like. Okay, so before the break, we were just about to really picture what it's like to be a motor vehicle engine assembler.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the actual day-to-day experience.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about interviews and career paths, but what can our listener expect when they walk onto that factory floor?
Okay, so picture this. You walk into this bustling manufacturing plant. There's so much going on. The air is filled with the sounds of machinery, the clang of tools, people talking.
Wow.
And you get to your workstation, you've got all these specialized tools, blueprints, and of course those engine components just waiting to be assembled.
It sounds pretty exciting. I bet it's really hands-on and fast-paced.
It is. So what are some of the first things an assembler would do when they start their day?
Yeah, good question.
Well, even before touching an engine, you'd probably start by looking over those work orders and blueprints.
Okay.
Just making sure you're clear on what type of engine you're building and any special instructions. Then you'd gather all your tools and the parts and double-check everything against those instructions.
So a lot of attention to detail even before you start the assembly.
Absolutely. Organization is key.
Okay, makes sense. What's next?
Then the real fun begins. You start assembling the engine piece by piece, following that exact order in the blueprints.
Oh, wow.
This could mean installing pistons and connecting rods, attaching the cylinder head, securing the timing belt or chain.
The guide really emphasized how important precision is in this job.
Oh, yeah, it's crucial.
Are there any special tools or techniques they use to make sure everything fits perfectly?
You'll be using all sorts of specialized tools.
Oh, cool.
Torque wrenches to tighten those bolts to very precise measurements, micrometers to measure the components super accurately,
Wow.
even special alignment tools to make sure everything is lined up perfectly.
So you need a steady hand and a good eye.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. What about the physical demands of the job?
Right. The guide mentioned it could be pretty tough on your body.
Yeah, it definitely is.
What's that like?
Engine assembly is a physical job. You're on your feet a lot, lifting and moving heavy parts, and sometimes you're in awkward positions.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So stamina and strength are really important.
Makes sense. The guide also talked about how important teamwork is in this role.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Right. How does that play out in the factory?
You're almost never working alone. You're constantly talking to other assemblers, the quality control inspectors, your supervisor, maybe even the engineers.
Hmm.
Communication is key. Whether it's asking for help with a heavy part, clarifying something in the blueprints, or pointing out a potential problem.
So everyone works together to make sure that engine is perfect.
Exactly. It's a real team effort.
Yeah.
So what happens once that engine is all put together?
Yeah, what's the next step?
Then that assembled engine goes through some serious testing and inspections.
Okay.
You might be involved in running those tests, checking for leaks, listening for any weird sounds.
Interesting.
It has to pass all those quality checks before it can be shipped out.
So it's not just about building it, it's about making sure it works perfectly.
Exactly. I bet there's a huge sense of accomplishment when you see a finished engine ready to go.
I was just thinking that. What's that like?
It is incredibly rewarding to know that you played a key role in creating something so complex and powerful.
Yeah.
And knowing that your work will literally help people get where they need to go. It's a pretty amazing feeling.
I can only imagine. It sounds like a really challenging, but also really fulfilling career.
It is. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, everything from interview tips to career insights and even what it's actually like to work as a motor vehicle engine assembler.
Yeah, we have. So do you have any final advice for our listener as they're starting out on this career journey?
I'd say never stop learning and growing. The auto industry is constantly changing, with new technologies popping up all the time. Stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to try new things.
That's great advice. And remember, RoleCatcher is there to support you every step of the way, from perfecting your resume to nailing those interview answers and staying ahead of the curve with those in-demand skills.
With the right prep and a passion for this work, you can have a really successful and rewarding career as a motor vehicle engine assembler.
Absolutely. To our listener, best of luck in your interview and with everything you do. And hey, maybe one day you'll be building the engines that power us towards a greener future. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.